So today we have Henry Koge with us. Henry is the Assistant Professor of Leadership, Education and Management at the University of Nottingham. He also holds a PhD in the same subject, and he is the founder and director of Teach Connect. Henry, welcome.
Thank you very much, Johnson.
Henry is part of why you're here, and we're honored to have you here, is that you exemplify for what we at Momentum think of as someone who is resilient. And I'd like you to start by sharing something of your story, where you've come from in terms of your home, and just bring us forward from that point.
All right, thank you. So the starting point for me in this journey has been my upbringing, and particularly from my mother. So my mom was, by the way, she was a single mom. She raised me from childhood. She was an educationist, and one of the things I liked about her was she was like the breadwinner of the family. She was struggling to make things work, and despite all the circumstances around her, she had to always find a way to actually get things done. And so I grew up with this mentality about setting specific goals and attaining them, regardless of the circumstances around you or the challenges, because the responsibilities behind you and the people you had to look out for kind of reminded you that someone had to be tough about what was going on. So building resilience for me started off at a very early age, because I grew up with my mom, with just the two of us, and she was taking care of the entire family, and so I was more like a support system for her, and so I kind of observed her, do all these things and raise up and become somebody who created a lot of economic values for herself that could share with her family. So my own journey started off when I took off from the university and started to say, oh, I wanted to change the education system. I wanted to change the way children were being taught in schools.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to see how we could actually create an opportunity where everyone had access, because I believe with education you can make better decisions for your life.
Yeah.
You can transform not only your economic value, but your social reality, your cultural norms. You can enhance your life generally with the information you have. So for me, it was about the vision. It was about what do you think could be done, and how do you think you could reach this. And so I started studying, okay, I need to craft a pathway. And quickly on.
I'm just going to stop you there for a second, because you've gone
too far.
Too far. So I'm still with Henry, the assistant professor to his mother.
Yes.
And you had to learn to take responsibility very early on.
Yeah.
And what age were you then?
So I think by then I was 9, 10. So by 9, 10, I started having, I had the responsibility to go out to the market to sell stuff, to raise money for my tuition. Right. I had the responsibility to stay home and prepare food, and clean the house, organize the house while my mom went out and search for better opportunities. I had the responsibility to actually go into places where she was supposed to have been, but she couldn't make it. So I'll go and represent her. So very early on, I started getting used to the idea of being around old people. They had meetings, and I was.
You mean older, not old.
Older people, like, yeah. What I mean by old,
yeah.
sorry. Yeah. I mean people who were like, at the age of in their 50s and 60s, and I'll be in that gathering. And,
right.
So it kind of gave me some kind of.
Now that was
exposure.
From the age of 10.
That was the age of 10, 11.
And what would you be representing your mother as?
So it'll be. It's like tontine. So you kind of get money where you play money, monthly contributions.
Right.
So what they'll do is they'll have a gathering in someone's house where they'll all come together, share food, and then, share some kind of information, some news, some kind of, I don't know. And then you have to play your own part of the contribution. So my responsibility was to collect her own contribution and go and represent her so she wasn't absent. And I'll take back information to her.
Like an ambassador.
Exactly. So I was like a general support system in all angles of her life, actually.
Right. Now that's a huge responsibility for a 10-year-old.
Yeah.
Apart from doing the cooking and doing the shopping as well.
Well, in Africa, I think it's normal. If you grow up in Africa, where you guys have to you need to do something about it.
Needs must.
I think there's a recent video I saw of one child in an African country was picking up a log.
Yes.
And he was struggling to pick up that log, and he kept trying until he succeeded. I think that represents the daily struggles most Africans will go through in their communities.
And was that kind of, for you, I guess, normal?
Of course, it's
Or
normal.
it is normal, yeah.
No, you have no choice. That's the reality.
Yes.
You either
Yeah.
brave through or you stay down complaining and crying.
And you were there also, you said something about selling stuff
Yeah,
in
it's,
the market
Yeah,
to pay for your education.
yeah, to make that contribution.
And that contribution was for your primary education.
Was to complete my primary and my secondary, to move into my secondary education, so to
Right.
go into the college.
Okay. So just talk us through the next level then, or the next steps for you.
Oh, the next level was it's been more challenging because then I started realizing that there was a lack in my life, there was an absence, and that absence was a father figure, someone I could model, someone I could live like. So I went to boarding school.
Yeah.
And in boarding schools, on weekends or special weekends, you have parents come and visit their kids.
Mm-hmm.
My mom couldn't come and visit me because it was a long distance, and she had, and even she came, it would just be her.
Yeah.
And I'll still have this absence of this father. And so I became aware when I started seeing other people, other children
Mm-hmm.
having this experience of a balanced family and stuff. But what also transformed my life during that stage for me for those 7 years was the fact that the school principal actually took interest in me at some point.
Yeah.
I was at the end of my stay at BHS Boyas, it's a Baptist high school. I was made a prefect.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why I was made a prefect is because I applied to be a prefect. I applied to be a works prefect. And I think in a school of over 900 kids or students, I had 3 votes. And so he was intrigued, like, why would this kid have just 3 votes in a massive school?
Yeah.
And they said they didn't like him. They said, why people don't like him? They say he's too strict and too disciplined. And he said, okay, that's the person I'll need to run the repertory. So he actually made me a repertorian. And then everything just changed. And so that's where I started my journey with leadership as well, understanding how to manage time, manage people, manage resources and stuff. But it taught me one lesson about leadership, because at the end of the year, we're now left to actually write the GCSE, which is an advanced level.
Mm-hmm.
And the people I'd spent time being very strict and hard on, I had to spend time nurturing and taking care of them so they could actually have the right mental state, the right feeling, the right...
Yeah.
And so I kind of saw the dynamics of leadership and governance and control quickly shift from you being the disciplinarian, you being the person directing, from you actually being accommodative, being empathetic, being supportive, being nurturing. So there's a conflict there for me. And so I went off from there to university and started developing this further.
Okay, so that's interesting that you say it's like the one who got the least votes won the competition to be prefect.
Yes, because there was somebody who saw something.
Because somebody saw some value in what you're doing. And that is amazing in itself. But I guess for that teenage Henry, and you say it's like you're like cracking the whip in one hand, and you're giving them the hug on the other hand.
No, at first it was all about cracking the whip. It was like, you're supposed to do this, and you're just going to do this.
Yeah.
And no excuses. It's more like military training.
Right.
Because that's how my mom also raised me up. I think last night I was thinking that we reflect our parents a lot. We kind of grow with them. We kind of replicate them unconsciously.
So where did this nurturing, empathetic bit come from?
So that's what I'm saying. So at the end of that story, that journey for me. So at the end of the year, since it's a boarding school, everybody goes. The rest of the school goes off. So the only people who stay on campus are those writing the GC.
Right.
And so what happens is the less staff. It's just you guys. You need to manage yourself. So you need to take care of those who are on campus.
Right.
Which meant rather than now having a bell, I had to go and talk to them and say, you have to come and get breakfast. You need to come and get lunch. You need to come and get supper. Are you all right? Are you okay? Because we were about preparing for the exams, and the schools had to do well. So you had to make that the structures and the principles I used to lead and manage during that era had to change to accommodate this new era.
So are you saying the whip stopped working?
Yeah. No, it didn't stop working. It had to change. It was just automatic. It wasn't going to work because everybody was independent at that time. There wasn't any rules and regulations anymore. So no one was obeying any rules. If you cared, you came to school, or no one would actually punish you. What we're there at that time was to ensure that we write the GC and that we were successful. And so to gain that success, the welfare of those who were there had to be taken care of. And those who were in charge of filling had to make sure that happened. and that
Okay.
actually changed the
Okay.
dynamics for me.
So you're saying almost like you know there's a responsibility that I have,
Yeah,
and so the way that you do it, the system, the thinking,
yeah,
all this
layers.
layers had to come underneath the fact that here's that responsibility to get this job done.
Yeah.
So it's not like suddenly you go from the whip cracker to somebody who is really give me a hug, nothing like that.
It's a transition, I think.
Well, hopefully, yeah, it's a transition, but it's very, very unusual for a teenager to go through that transition
Very
so
fast.
quickly.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not saying you didn't. I'm just saying it sounds unusual.
Well, I had to, because there was just no other way I had to go around. If not, people wouldn't eat.
Yeah.
There'll be more complaints.
Yeah.
It will affect their studies. It will affect their performance, and I didn't want to bear that kind of responsibility or that kind of blame. So I had to change that. Honestly,
Okay.
I had to. And it was awkward the first 2 days. Someone you've been telling you can't do this, you tell, okay, now you can do this. It was awkward. You had to put yourself in that position to actually say, okay, this is what it is now. This is how we're going to move forward from here.
So at that point, let's move forward past the secondary school, the boarding school,
Yeah.
and tell me what happened next in terms of your education and development.
Oh, that's an interesting one. So, in terms of my education and development, I had a scholarship. At the end of my GCSE, I had a scholarship to study at the University of Bridgeport, New York.
Right.
And I was given a half scholarship. So it meant I still had to pay $14,000
Yeah.
to go to uni. And I couldn't afford that. We couldn't afford that. If my mom could try, raise a few $1,000, but the US embassy in my country wouldn't give me a visa. Pretext that I was not going to go back to my country. So in hope with the school, we kept trying. So we tried for like 3 times in a year. We tried again the next year. And by the third year, I said, I'm fed up. I can't keep on waiting to be what I want to be. I could do something else.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got a lot of knowledge and information about education already from my mom's experience. I was just going to do education. I was trying to see what we could do with that. So I went and studied education. I did CSC biology, curriculum design and teaching. And I graduated. And when I graduated, I started working already. But I quickly realized that there were a lot of issues in schools. There were just so many. I didn't even know where to start. And so I thought I needed more knowledge. So I decided to go and do a master's, and I did a PhD afterward. The one thing which I kind of like sharing with my undergrad is that the way the schools were designed in Cameroon, the way the lecturers taught, some, not all, but this is what I experienced. It was more like something which you could replicate easily. You could collect the material syllabus and stay home and read and just come and write exams. It would be the same word for word.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be the same exams that would repeat year after year, which meant if I made a collections of all the exams for the last 5 years,
Yeah.
and just studied the exams,
Yes.
I'll pass. I'll have a degree.
Yes.
And for me, I found that very disturbing because education could be more than that.
So that's like I've got a knowledge but no real education, no
You can't.
understanding,
Nothing, you don't.
no application,
Nothing.
nothing. But I've got a.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you find people who are looking for certifications, they have stamps and certifications, but in real life they can't do anything.
Yeah.
And that's why Africa is struggling actually, because you have many graduates who leave universities, but they can't apply their knowledge in any space because they haven't been taught in their own context. So that for me was the next phase of my life. And it's only once I started doing my master's and PhD that I realized that leadership was very important.
So let's just backtrack a minute. So you're talking about not getting into Bridgeport.
Yeah.
And you've done your first degree. Mm-hmm. Take me through the masters and the PhD. Where did you go next, seeing that one door shut?
So after my first degree, I went to Cyprus.
Right.
CIIM. It's called Cyprus International Institute of Management.
Mm-hmm.
It's more of a business school. I think it's accredited by Harvard. So most of the business schools' knowledge has been imbibed and permeates their whole culture. And they had a course on educational leadership and management. And most of the people who taught on that course were people from the University of Warwick. And so I kind of liked, the quality of knowledge that was being disseminated during those courses. I liked the way they were taught. I liked the way they modeled that those sessions. So after I finished that, I now came to work. Yeah.
Okay. So to again, it's like it's not a straight line we're drawing here. We're not drawing a straight line.
I'm just a fast forward story.
Just talk us through what are some of the things you had to overcome to get one to Cyprus and two the Warwick journey.
So the Cyprus journey, first of all, wasn't. I don't know if it was easy or not easy. I really didn't care. I just wanted to study. So I was more interested in finding what I could learn because by then I'd become a school director. But I wanted to learn how to actually manage a school and create a school that was effective and successful in creating equity for children, accessible materials that could allow them to actually apply knowledge in their context. So you can find, plastic or waste disposal around, but people didn't know how to solve the problem because they didn't have the knowledge. So I went to Cyprus. I did the masters. My challenge in Cyprus was probably my origin, my skin color, and the fact that I was African. So I think I was also still very shocked that till that time, that was 2008, that people were racist, and that was discrimination. And then people still thought that Africans had tails, and Africans didn't have universities, Africans didn't go to school. People were surprised that you could speak English. And but one of the things which actually struck me in Cyprus was the fact that I couldn't do one module which was called Practicum in Educational Leadership. I couldn't go to school because I was not Cypriot. Practicum in education.
What does that?
So it means you go and practice. You go and spend time as a school principal in school for a while as part of your degree program. I couldn't do it because they would not allow me to do it because of my identity. But what I learned from it was that we could always still learn, even though the environment does not allow you to do stuff. You can still learn exactly what it takes to become or to overcome or to learn and to. Yeah, so I think in Cyprus that was my major concern. In fact, the first day in Cyprus when I arrived, I was asking the lady. I wanted to ask a lady for a trolley. When she saw me, she made the sign of the cross. It meant she had hardly seen a black person before, and at that time in the morning, it was scary to see a black person at the first.
Yeah.
So it was interesting. But I had one professor who was very he had very good interest in me. He was my supervisor as well, and he said, "You don't need to go to school. You just read and then ask people questions. Ask those who are in school questions, and you can learn more about what they're doing." And so anything you had which was a difficulty to a journey, you can find another route to it. The key thing is, what are you trying to obtain? It's not what are you trying to experience, but what are you trying to obtain from it.
I'm going to stop you there because that's a really interesting point. Is what are you trying to obtain versus what you're trying to experience?
Yeah.
Now that's a big statement in itself, but I'm sure would have several thousand words
involved in
that. Yeah. So the experience is not going to stop me. It's the attainment of the goal or the direction or the vision.
Yeah, exactly.
That is more important. So for a lot of people, it's like saying, okay, well, you can have a vision that is that small, and then you encounter a problem that is that size, and then you can't see
beyond that.
Yeah. And so you're saying to me, well, I've learned to find a vision that is that size, so when the problems come, or the obstacles come, I'm still seeing the vision.
True.
I'm not interested so much as
the
problems or the experiences, because the vision keeps pulling you forward.
Yeah, and I think after my journey, after my PhD, that started becoming very evident and clear to me.
Right.
Yeah.
But just how did this young man from a poor country who somehow got to Cyprus, then ends up in one of the top universities in the UK?
Yeah.
How does that happen?
Well, by the way, CIM was the top universities in Cyprus.
Was it? Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
It is
Excuse my ignorance.
No, it's alright.
But yeah. So
How do you do that?
how does somebody go from that level of poverty, if you want,
Yeah, it is.
physical poverty, but obviously not
Mental.
poverty mindset.
Yeah. So that's a good point, and this is what drives me. So if I look at my background, where I'm coming from, and my story, and the people I've lived with and grew up with, what people see is they're trying to get rich,
Right.
and nobody's trying to solve the original problem. And so what will happen is you'll find people who will, in that community, emerge as a single person who's rich, wealthy, and successful, but the community stays the same, and that journey of perpetual poverty keeps repeating itself in cycles. And so generation over generation will still be the same. And so, but you need someone who comes and say, okay, yes, I can come out of it, but let me put a system in place that enables others to emerge as well out of that system. So how did I get from Cyprus to Warwick? So by the way, I said Cyprus was one of the best schools. It was the best school, and I'll say why. It had the best lecturers from the world that came to teach at CIM. And like I said, it was accredited by Harvard. So I think I was just fortunate, and by, I don't know, sheer grace or God's mercy, I happened to land an admission from that institution, just applying. When I applied, they said, "Do you have any experience? Because you need experience to actually be." I said, "Yes, I've been a school director." They said, "Okay, send us all your activities." So I did send my activities, and I said, "Okay, yes, there you be. You can understand exactly what we're teaching you." And so that's how I went to Cyprus. But how I got to Warwick is actually a different story, because in Warwick wasn't my first choice. My first choice was Birmingham.
Okay.
But Birmingham rejected me. It was Professor Christopher Rhodes. Yeah.
Right.
He went back and said, "I don't think you're qualified to do a PhD. I don't think your idea and your topics make sense." I'm like, "That's all right." So then I had Leeds and Warwick. I had Aberdeen. And I chose Warwick. And I was supposed to pay fee. I had paid school fees. But what was a trick for me was like, it was like a direction, some kind of divine direction. Like, you just go here. And when I went into Warwick, I met the best person in educational leadership in the whole world. He was my supervisor. And so I met from just being hopeless and not knowing what to do, and meeting the right teacher when you're ready. So I think this is the thing that when the student is ready, the teacher appears.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and I met this very tall man, and from there we've had a relationship which has lasted up to today. Now we're colleagues actually, at the University of Nottingham, Professor Tony Bush.
Okay.
So it's been a journey, which I think, when I look back, I ask myself, how many children from Cameroon, from the English speaking, have the opportunity to become a STEM professor in the University of Nottingham?
Yeah.
The chances are very, very, they're not up to 1%.
Yeah.
And so how can I replicate that journey? Or how can I create a blueprint that someone else can follow? True, there are circumstances around my life that people will be able to copy, but I think there are certain principles in that journey that they can pick up and apply in their own lives. And I think this has been my driver ever since I thought of, going through the educational route.
So I'm going to ask you a very personal question. Are you a rich man?
No, I'm not.
Okay. So
it depends on how you define richness.
Okay. In terms of material wealth.
In terms of material wealth, if you count people as material, then I'll say.
No, I'm not counting people. We're not going down the nice, soft, touchy kind of
all right.
How many friends have you got on Facebook kind of thing. No, we're not going down that. I'm speaking of material wealth in terms of ownership of house, land, cars, aeroplanes, whatever.
I don't think I'll call myself rich in that space, because I use my resources to build capacity in people.
Okay. Yeah. So my point in this is going to be clear. So the traditional model that you've talked about before is saying, well, I come from a poor country, and where what I see is somebody gets out of that pit, and they get to this level of material success. And then if you're fortunate, the guy at the top says, "Hey, let me put a ladder down so other people can climb up." That's the traditional kind of personal development thing that people sell.
Yeah.
Okay. And you are saying to me, what you are living and modeling is not that.
I don't think that kind of model.
So it's a different model altogether.
Yeah.
Because it's not that I have achieved a certain level of personal wealth and therefore I can, if you want, tie 10% back into forming the ladder. You're saying I am trying to create a model where I am and we are moving up together.
Yeah.
So we are moving up together and then the ladder is being built as we move upwards. Would that be a fair thing to say?
Yeah, I think so. I like describing like being in the maze, and you give people the right tools to think about how to craft their own journey through the maze.
Yeah.
Because we're all in the maze.
Yeah.
And my decision at any given point in time might not be the right decisions for you because you might not have the capabilities to deal with what will come out from that decision, or you might not have the right tools at that time to make that decision. So you need to build capability within that. And so my role would be, all right, to become financially, secure, to become job-proof, to become socially stable or respectable. These are the things you need to think about.
Yeah.
You answer these questions and then you walk towards them. It's not like this is the answer. I don't think there's any right answer for anybody. So I think that's the model I'm trying to bring in, is to give people the capacity to think for themselves, reflect for themselves, create for themselves, act for themselves, make decisions for themselves, and then hold themselves accountable for themselves. Because if you don't, that's
a big one, isn't it? How you hold yourself accountable to yourself.
Yeah, because they've sold the first model a lot. Most people sold the first model a lot. So if you keep thinking somebody needs to get up there and descend the ladder to you to climb,
yes.
They are not accountable. I'm waiting for you to finish. The responsibilities on you who's building the ladder.
Okay.
But if you're building that ladder yourself and you're seeing how it's going, you can understand the experience of the journey. Then you cannot take some kind of commitment, accountability, and responsibility in that journey, in the co-creation of that ladder.
Yes. Yeah.
I think for me that's what I say.
That's my little acronym. That is O.
Oh.
OAR.
Okay. What's
so O is ownership.
Ownership.
A is accountability.
Yeah.
And R is responsibility.
Oh, I have CAR, CAA. I have commitment, which is commitment, which is dedication and constraint, and then I have accountability, and then I have responsibility.
Well, my O must be better than your CAR. Oh, we can share it.
We can share it. We can actually modify it. Yeah.
Or the opposite to that is, say, whenever I mess up, but I stay in bed.
Yeah, you said that.
I blame.
Yeah, I don't.
I make an excuse, and I just do the R, which is to responsibility or avoid the responsibility.
Yeah, I think most people do avoid responsibility. I think that's where the most problem comes from. Like I said to you this morning, I've gotten to a stage in my life where if I make a mistake, I own it up instantly. I don't feel guilty about it. I don't feel ashamed because you just kind of drain yourself and drag yourself down before the world even beats you on it. Yeah. So I won't want to give them that advantage.
So before anybody can hit me with it, I'm not hitting myself with it.
I just own the problem and take responsibility to actually make amends for it, correct it, or do the right things to make it better.
So for somebody who's not as wired, if I want to say the right word, or mentally capable of doing that, or emotionally capable of doing that, because come on, not everybody can do that. What are you going to say to the rest of us?
I like the way you put yourself in that. I'm in that group as well. I think for me, honestly, just it's at the end of the day, you need to remind yourself you're going to die.
Yeah.
So you're going to ask yourself, you're going to die. How do you want to die? How do you want to feel when you're dying in bed? And so there's something which has to trigger your responsibility or your responsiveness to say, yes, this is things that have happened. These are things that I wish could have happened. But these are things I can do now to make it realign.
Yeah.
And that's where that energy comes in to say, okay, I'll gather myself physically, I'll gather my emotions and my feelings, and I'll try and do this one now. So we need to see beyond the circumstances of what is happening now, beyond our experiences, beyond our feelings, beyond our emotions, and ask ourselves, what is right? And I think the only question that can, or the only thing, or not only the only thing actually, some of the things that can point you to that direction is, what are the values you're trying to uphold with that goal? What's the moral lesson for yourself and for others if no one else was watching you? And how would you feel if that was the last thing you had to do before you die? So once you can actually come to an argument on, which you feel comfortable with, I think you have the strength to take one step forward.
Yeah. And that comes back, it reminds me of that thing about vision again.
Yeah.
So the vision is not even my lifetime.
No, it's not.
It's not. It's not. So there's a vision of what I can achieve, okay, which is temporal, and then there's a vision that goes on beyond the existential.
Yeah, right.
And you say yes. So whatever time I'm allotted, it fits into a bigger time frame.
Yeah.
And with the eye on that bigger time frame, I can now adjust my view of my own time frame, so it pulls me forward.
Yeah. So something needs to pull you forward.
So, well, yes, of course, something needs to pull you forward.
If not, you stay in bed all day. And the vision is the thing that can pull you forward.
And the vision is what can pull you forward. So, in terms of the obstacles now, because tell me some more about the obstacles you face and how you overcome, because I know you have obstacles.
So this is interesting, Johnson. I don't speak problems. I speak solutions.
Okay,
so I kind of remember. I kind of don't remember.
Tell okay. Make the problem this small and the solution this big.
All right, which part?
Anyone your choice.
Oh, there's so many.
Because just give me one.
A problem I'm solving. I think one of my major problems has been my family.
Yeah.
Because it's my biggest barrier. It's my biggest weakness. And why is my biggest weakness? We think differently, and yet I need to penetrate them. I need to walk through them. I need to walk with them to get to where I'm trying to get to, and they don't see it. And so it's not only frustrating, but it slows you down. I don't think I have a solution for that one, to be honest. I just kind of pull certain things away from them and then do things in silos and isolation, which takes you more time. It kind of brings some kind of emotional pain, because the people you love the most, who you want to share with the most, are the ones who will fight you the most.
Yes.
And sometimes it's difficult having the strength to even fight back. So you can't fight them back. You just okay, just slaughter me.
And that's important to say. Yeah, there are some issues, some problems that either you may never solve, or you may solve somewhere in the future.
Mm-hmm.
But to be able to almost compartmentalize this thing for now,
impossible,
which may or may not be possible, but or walk with it and say, okay, I believe enough in the other bits that pull me forward. So while this is slowing me down, it is not stopping me.
Of course. No.
And that's a key bit, that there are things that will slow us down.
Yeah, true.
But won't stop you.
Yeah. Nothing is stopping you till you stop yourself.
Talk to me about Teach Connect now. So you've finished the masters, the PhD, and there's a vision beyond simply lecturing, simply bringing the next generation of students who are in front of you.
All right. So TC started just immediately I started teaching. So when I started my teaching career in 2007, I realized so the first problem was I was given a kind of a mentor teacher to guide me. He was doing his third year at university at that time. He'd been teaching for a long time, so he was a teacher. He had done teacher training in Cameroon. The teacher training colleges, the universities, they're quite separate. But what I noticed was he had a notebook, which he's been using for the past 4 years. It was the same notebook. He just rolls it, and it becomes a small, nice, like a scroll. He walks into class and opens the book, and then children will copy notes. And when they ask if you have any questions, and that's it, the class is over. So I was supposed to take over his class and teach the class. And so when I started teaching that class, I had to follow the method he was doing, and I was feeling so uncomfortable. I couldn't see myself learning in that kind of, because I didn't. In fact, one thing I didn't say as well, I went to university, but I didn't go to class. Yeah, I have a degree, but I never went to a class to form for a lecture. because I found
Sorry,
it
are
boring.
you telling me you never went physically
Into a lecture. I went only to write exams. So I just went to uni to write. In fact, I actually wrote exams to a point where I started repeating exams I'd written and passed. And it was bringing down my GPA. I met one guy, his name is, I think it's on my Facebook post, that post. I met a guy called Echutambe. And he
Right.
asked me, "Are you okay?" I said, "Yes, sir." He says, "I don't think you're all right." I said, "Why?" He says, "Because," he says, "No, come to my office." So he takes me to his office. He says, "Do you know you're writing CAs? So CAs are continuous assessment. You know you're repeating CAs and you're dropping your GP, I don't know, GP. You grade something. I don't know how they call the grades." And I said, "No, I'm not aware." He said, "Let me show you. So you've written this exam, you passed it. You've written it again now, you've passed it, but it's going to drop because you're repeating it."
Okay.
He says, "If you continue, you'll not be able to graduate with a good GPA." I was like, "Oh." I said, "So what do I do?" He says, "Okay, you do this, you do this." And we became friends. And we're friends today. He's like a brother now to me. And that was because I never went to uni. I didn't know what was happening. I only knew the exam dates. Because I found it so boring that you go to a school, you pay fees to go to a school, a lecturer will collect a textbook, photocopy the textbook, give it to you to read, then give you an exams with the text, which is, you can find in the same textbook.
Yeah.
So what's the purpose of the school then? Why do I come to school? I don't need to come to school. So coming back to my story about TC, I saw that happening in secondary schools as well. The second problem I found very great teachers who didn't have social skills, who didn't know how to interact with children, who didn't know how to nurture, bring a child to a point where they could actually be comfortable wanting to learn. I found people who were abusive, people who would, sell grades, sell marks for a bottle of beer, for cigarettes, for sex. There were a lot of issues for me, and I was like, no, someone needs to do something about these things. And no one was daring to talk about them because everybody was scared. Well, I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid to tell you this is wrong, this is not right. I think we could do this better. I think so. We started TC as a social group for knowledge exchange. But one of the things I was trying to solve was to break the gap between older teachers and younger teachers. So I was a young teacher, a younger teacher then. I was like in my 20s actually, and I had people teaching like they were like in their 50s and 40s. And I was seeing some kind of a disconnection between the dynamic between these two groups. And I was saying, why don't we come together regularly and talk about our teaching methodologies, our social lives, how we behave with students, how we react to ourselves, and how we can help ourselves grow. And they liked the idea, but the key thing was the main premise of the idea was they were coming into that just for the social benefits, so to drink and eat and then share. And that was it. When it came to us discussing deep and real issues, no one would come. So when I did my PhD, I had to rebrand it from what it was previously called to Teach Connect. And what the idea was to actually bring people who could teach each other for us to connect together.
Right. Okay. So it was now more than just let's get together and share some stories to now let's
learn together and teach each
learn
other
and teach each other
and connect beyond the profession as persons and people in communities.
So how did you shift the mindset of the people you're trying to reach? Because I imagine it's okay. So you might say, okay, well, we've rebranded it, but rebranding it and renaming it doesn't actually change anything.
Yeah, I think what changed a lot was the fact that I'd now done some data collections by 2013. So I stayed in Cameroon. I went back to Cameroon in 2013 to do data collections. My premise of my thesis was about job motivation and job satisfaction and how a job is designed and why you work. And then I realized that besides being a teacher, you're a human being. So you have human needs.
Okay.
You have social needs, you have needs for belonging, financial security, all those needs. Then your profession is a little fraction of it. And so when I look at the lives of teachers in Africa generally, they're always like the lowest in society. They're considered to be the poor. In fact, I went to one debate once, someone was saying, his daughter would never marry the teacher because they're poor, they're wretched, they're useless.
Yeah.
You get, and I was saying, well, that's a different definition. You haven't met the real ones. And so when I came back from that study, because I did my research, I was comparing between an urban region and a rural region. And there's some stark differences around the key variables. So you find like the need for social unit or unity, the need for some kind of inclusion about your own capabilities or how you can share your ideas and grow. I realized that teachers needed money. They needed some kind of community service where they could belong together, not just union, talk about political things, but service. They needed professional development a lot in a lot of issues. They needed to have some kind of a resource center. So when I came back to England, I now rebranded TC and restructured the whole idea and gave it some more flesh. And it became a kind of a very large web, I would call it. And the first day I actually started working on it, I was scared. I used to ask myself, Henry, you're not qualified to do all of this. And I say, hey, shut up, I can do it. I can do it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have it if I couldn't do it.
So you have a little parrot on your shoulder saying
yes.
exactly the same thing like everybody else.
Each time, and this is beautiful, each time I'm doing something very massive, I always have that voice who say, you can't do this. And then I'll say, watch me. Yeah. I've had it 4 times. And the last time I had it was when I was in England. I was buying stuff for my restaurant. I was about creating a restaurant in Cameroon. So I walk into the Costco and to another shop in Cameroon. It's a big retail. They do a lot of sales. So I walk in with £5,000. I'm buying equipment to ship to Cameroon. And then as I walk into the shop, a voice says, Henry, please go back. Go do something with this money. You can't do this. And I say, watch me. And so that's how I've carried on with the stuff. If anything, I have any personal doubt that creeps in, I'm like, yeah, I know you're there. Sit down. Watch us do it. The Holy Spirit's in control.
Okay. So that's a key point I just wanted to just pause on a minute or is that sometimes people can watch somebody like you who is extremely focused and driven and whatever it is. And you think, well, this guy has no doubt.
Oh, I guess so. They're wrong.
This guy has nothing that tells him he can't do it.
Myself, I do that.
And so it's refreshing to hear for people to know that yes, this is normal. Whatever area you're in, this is normal. You can't avoid that voice that says you can't.
I'll tell you one thing. I think so my mom, if my mom approves something I say, it's a big plus for me. It's like the biggest. In fact, it's like the biggest win because she's the most critical person who always say, "No, you can't do that."
Yeah.
And so there was a day I was saying, "I'm going to build a lab because we're doing. I used to teach chemistry, and there was no lab. So how do you teach chemistry without a lab?" And I said, "I'm going to build a lab." She's like, "How are you going to do it?" She's like, "You need to find somebody to do it." Like, "Why don't you find somebody I can do it?" She said, "Okay, go and do it." That's the first time she told me congratulations, by the way. Yeah. So each time I'm about to do something which you don't find a model existing around, and people can motivate you to do it, and someone says you can, and I have that feeling that says, "No, you cannot do it." I'm like, "Shut up, watch me do it." So it's like the 2 people in me are talking, and I always like to actually allow the person who gave me the initial message to that, to bring it out because we all go through doubts with moments where you feel low, you feel like giving up. I go through that as well, but I'm saying no. I'll just take a moment off, but I'm coming back stronger, better.
So that there is whatever that period of time is that you're listening to this or you're feeling low or whatever it is, there's a period that's a normal process of having to go through that process and you can't avoid it. The problem is that if you stay in that for too long, it heads south. Definitely.
And you know why? Because the world is already telling you that.
Yeah.
So you're only reinforcing external messages in the world that become part of what you accept as yourself. If you're not strong enough, you're going to buy into that.
So one of the words or one of the phrases that you just mentioned there, I want to touch on was the Holy Spirit. And so for you, there's a sense of a spiritual dimension.
Yes, there is.
That is might even be your secret ingredient.
I would say so. I'll tell you. I'll say so.
Tell us about that.
All right. So first of all, I've had people who said, "Oh, you have a good anointing," and I said, "No, I'm not sure." But what I would say, I have.
Sorry, what do you mean a good anointing? What is that?
I don't know what it is. Some people tell me. I have a pastor. A pastor will say, "Oh, I see, young man. Yes, you're anointed. You have some."
Does that mean you're special?
I don't know. Maybe it means that. Maybe you have the Holy Spirit and you. I don't know. But this is what is strange. So, in terms of my professional life, where I've seen people struggle, make stress to get doors open for them. Mine is always open and waiting for me. And that's not by my making. It doesn't make me more qualified. So I should say I was the only person in my team when I was working in Malaysia who had not had publications. I not published anything. I just left my PhD. But then I was working on a top project for the University of Nottingham. And that could have been done by the grace of God. And when I resigned from Malaysia, by the time I resigned from Malaysia, Nottingham, UK was like, you should come over. I had people in my team who were more qualified and who had more publications, but they were not selected. I don't know what I did. So the things that I've survived as well. So I've survived so many things. You talk about problems. So problems no longer exist in my world because I've survived all kinds of things. Accidents, I fell in a pile of souvenirs. I had all kinds of stuff. But what has taken me through and which I now believe very strongly that God is behind me. And so when I go through difficulties, people say, oh, I'm sorry for you. I'm like, please don't be. There's somebody standing behind me who is way bigger, stronger, and who's going to take me through. And this, for me, came out very truly, I think, from the last 2 years, 2019 and 2020, when I was going through a divorce. That for me changed my life significantly because I actually started seeing God manifest himself in the way things were happening for me and the way things were evolving. So we need to appreciate the fact that beneath or above what we see, the spiritual realm that is in operation, that is actually taking place, that is actually orchestrating things for us. What it's saying is, do you believe? Do you have faith? Do you trust me? Take the first step and I'll catch you in the next one. So for me, it's not the circumstances. I don't see, if I have any problem around me, I'm like, well, that's fine. Okay, that's happening. So what do we do next? What's our next step? Why? Because I'm counting on an anchor, which is bigger than what I see.
Okay, so what I hear you saying is almost like, okay, there is God who cares, is concerned about, guides, is behind you, backing you all the way. And you see problems in front of you.
Yeah.
But you're not telling me, well, okay, so I have this big guy behind me. He's looking after me. There's the problem. I'll just wait. Oh. That's not what you're saying.
No.
You're saying he's behind me, he's with me, he's for me. There's a problem.
I just keep going.
I keep going.
Yeah. Okay. Unless he says wait.
Unless he says wait.
Yeah. Well, I think we need to know how to listen to God's voice. I think He speaks to us.
Mm-hmm.
And when I started believing it was when I started the Book 8 project. So on 3 nights consecutively, I dreamt about something. And on the 3rd day, the thing happened. Someone just came and said, Henry, I'm moving out of this country and I need to get to America. But these things I think I have to give them to you. I think you know what to do with them. This is money as well. And I started looking at her like that. I'm like, okay. But that's God's working. That's not mine working. Because first I didn't ask her. I didn't tell her about it. She knew what I was doing anyway. But I think God has a way of stepping before us to address the things He has placed in our hearts to do. Yeah. He's always saying that if you believe and you can do your part, I'll fulfill the promises I've made for you. That's my belief. And this has always worked for me. That's why I tell people, anything I'm doing, it's not economic value for it. I don't do that because of one way. I don't do it because I want you to know me. You don't need to know who I am. Just trust that God's going to walk through this thing and He's going to save you. He's going to, So, because He's come through for me. And if He's did that for me, why not you? I'm like the worst person you find on earth. And if I can call myself that, what not about you? He will do it. If you can take care of the birds, what not about me?
Yeah.
That's my belief, Johnson.
Yeah. So, in terms of where you're moving forward now with the Teach Connect. Teach Connect is how old now?
13 years.
13 years.
Yeah, officially. 15 years in the making.
And so, just as we sort of end this journey that we're on for this episode, give us a little
teaser
of exactly
because it's complicated.
I know it's complicated because you've heard me say I have no understanding what you're doing because there's so many strands that you chuck at me and I'm thinking, okay.
There is.
So maybe a few little
teaser of what it is or where it's going to.
Oh, where yes.
So what it is a simple thing. It's a single concept. It says teach people how to learn and how they can solve their own problems and how they can build communities and build love in those communities and grow together as one. And so how we do that, it's we walk through different forms of professional life, and we kind of focus a lot in schools or what education is all about. But the whole thing has just been a seed that was planted for education. So it started with a teacher at the center of how you could become a professional teacher, someone who could actually create a culture of positivity and possibilities in the minds of children and spark creativity. But then it became the individual who's a teacher, their social life, their financial life, their professional life, and other elements of their life. And so TC has emerged as a very complex unit now, where we look at finances. We have a financial unit, we have Money Lab. We're actually looking at creating a microfinance, a bank, where teachers can save money, they can grow their own money, they can invest in projects, and they can rent and they can borrow money, peer-to-peer lending. We're looking at having a public library, which is something we've had for a while. We're looking at having a training center. We're looking at creating a QAA center, a quality assurance center for schools, where they can actually have an index where they measure their performance based on how they're developing. We're looking something similar as well for enterprises, so people who want to become entrepreneurs, who want to become investors. And finally, we have people who are trying to just develop as individuals, whether it's Ignite. We're trying to see how you can actually go back into your story and find out the things that enabled you to find your inner hero, and build that inner hero to become somebody more successful, more elevated, have more purpose in your life, have more meaning. And finally, we're looking at building a leadership development center, which is our key premise, that as an individual, you must know how to lead yourself, you must know how to lead others, lead teams, lead communities, and probably lead a nation. But that is based on moral principles and biblical norms.
Okay, so even what you just said here is like, in my mind, several
units,
volumes of an encyclopedia.
It is massive. Johnson. So when I don't know if I've ever shown you the building. So when I designed the map for the office in Boya, 2016, it has 4 floors, more than 28 rooms on each floor. And I sent my mom to go and visit. So this is my mom. My mom is like a very capable woman, like very determined. And she goes and she calls me and says, "My son, what are you building here? What are you trying to do? This is so big." And I remember telling her this was the smallest thing I can conceive as of now. So I have a friend in Malaysia. His name is Andrew. He's Australian by origin. He has a space called Mindspaces, something similar like TC. But what he's dealing with just the Excel framework of TC, which is about teaching schools and inclusive education, people with disabilities and all of that. And he has a village. And I told him, I need a country. I need a whole massive where you can have different units, people specializing in different things and doing different things. And then having 2 or 3 units where you have a crossbreed of all those things, an interdisciplinary approach of how you match those things to actually reflect what the society needs at any given point in time. So you don't need to import beds from China in hospitals. We don't need to import medicine from India. We can find them because the lands are blessed by those very nature, by what God created. So what we need is the knowledge. We need the wisdom. We need the counsel. We need all those things to actually build. And I think that's what we're trying to do through Line. TC.
So this is a physical building.
It is a physical building
that exists now.
Yeah, we just started roofing it actually.
Right. So it's not, just to be clear, that all these things you say
are not just conceptual.
They're not concepts.
No.
These are ongoing projects.
Yeah.
Different stages
of growth,
but they are beyond the drawing board.
Yeah, they are beyond the drawing board. So we've taken 10 years to approve and validate the TC model. So it's a model which I can tell you it works anywhere. If you're looking at building a center for kids for creativity and design, we have a model. You're looking to actually help people get jobs, we have the model. Financial institution, we have the model. So we've kind of validated the model for what we are doing. So and that's why we're now public.
And this is why when I say to you I'm gobsmacked, It's not because of all these things that are possible,
Mm.
but it sounds, to my limited understanding, that the time frame has shrunk down for some of these things, in that or rather it's accelerated. It's like time's accelerated. The things that you're doing, which we've not touched on,
Yeah.
Have moved forward at a pace that seems to be faster. Just even using the word validated, and I understand validated from the science perspective and from the not so much the business perspective, but in order to validate something,
Yeah.
takes a long period of time.
Yeah, it does. It does.
And it takes a lot of energy and a lot of effort.
Resources as well. So
Yeah.
in terms of money, I always say to people, you can play with anything, but don't play with TC, because I've spent my whole life on it. I've spent my whole life on it. When I mean validated, I mean all the models we've designed in terms of learning, in terms of things we can do and transform children into adults who can create stuff for themselves. Yes, we've done them, we've modeled them, they've yielded results which actually makes me proud, and I keep investing in that because I've seen the results. It's not something I'm thinking about. It's no longer a vision. It's something which I've seen happen, and I think we need to just make it more visible.
Okay. And this is what this is about.
This is what it is about. And this is actually why I also designed, so I can actually spend time building this up myself.
So, Henry, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you for making me talk about this. It's the first time I'm talking about it, actually.
And I think it won't be the last, or it shouldn't be the last.
Wow.
Because for me, I see a man who's got concepts, but able to transform the concepts from the invisible to the visible.
Yeah.
And to continue to move it forward. So it's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much, and I'm very, very privileged myself.
And just as we end, Henry, where do people find you?
You can find me on LinkedIn, I guess.
Okay.
Collier Henry on LinkedIn. You can also find me on Facebook, Henry McCullough, which is my other names.
Right.
Very confusing. It's my publishing name, actually. So I publish my books in secondary schools as Henry McCullough.
Okay, we won't go into the publishing one now.
We won't go into that. Yeah, we'll stay with
we'll stay with the broad concept.
You can find me on LinkedIn. I think that's the only place I can be for now.
Okay.
Yeah.
But Teach Connect has a website.
Yes, they do have a website.
So
I'm not Teach Connect though. I try not to be.
No, but you're contactable through Teach Connect.
You can contact the team. You can contact them. So you can contact any department. You have the Ignite, which is ignite@tc.org. You can contact Enterprise Lab, which is enterprise.tc.org. You can contact Research Center, which is research@tc.org. You can contact TC itself, which is info@tc.org.
Excellent.
Yeah, I think you said you can contact the Teach Studio as well, which is like the studio at studio.tc.org. So, me personally, I try not to be TC. One of the things I've not liked is people who design organizations and make them about them. Yeah, it's not TC, it's not me. I was given the idea.
Okay.
And I think it's to raise other leaders.
So even if I don't want to connect to Henry, I can connect to TC.
I'll be glad if you can connect with TC. Share your ideas, share your thoughts. Tell us where you don't agree with what we think, what we're doing well, what we can improve on. We are here to learn.
And so on that note, that's a really important note. That please, as whatever you're listening, wherever you're listening
from,
connect and share.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you.